Welcome to another edition of Cavs Insider. I'm Dan Lobby. Chris Fedor will be joining me shortly. I also had a chance to talk to David Zavak of Fear the Sword, and Chris Haynes joined us to talk Cavaliers, of course, as well. Those are all coming up later in the show. First of all, the Cavaliers, well, they beat the Pacers on Friday night. Then they hit the road. They got kicked out of their own arena. The NCAA regional tournament is here, of course. They got wins over Milwaukee, a win over Memphis. They've got Brooklyn on Friday night. Those are all coming up. We'll talk about that. But first, as promised, I caught up with David Zavak from Fear the Sword. All right, I'm joined now by the editor of cleveland.com, David Zavak. He joins me via phone. How are you, David?
Hey, good. How are you?
I'm good. Let's start with that win over Memphis. The Cavs have kind of been piling up impressive victories since LeBron James came back from that 2 weeks off. I'm just wondering if you think that win last night, considering that it was on the road, there was a lot of buzz about that game. Memphis is the 2 seed in the West, at least for now. Seemed to cause some matchup problems. I wonder if you think that win was maybe the Cavs' most impressive win in this stretch.
Yeah, if it's not, it's really close to it. I think that win over Golden State, even though it was at home a couple weeks ago, was a big deal. That one was on national TV, and the Cavs really played well against the Golden State Warriors. But last night, in terms of, I think a lot of people were questioning how successful the Cavs offense could be against a really good defense. Memphis is known for just that, playing really well on the defensive end. I think seeing the Cavs sort of slice and dice a team with Mark Gasol and Mike Conley and Tony Allen, it's three of the best defenders really in the NBA at their respective positions. I think it was really impressive. So it's certainly right at the top of the list, particularly what they were able to do offensively.
LeBron James said before the game that the Cavs maybe didn't really look at it as much of a statement game as other people might have seen it as. But, I wonder, looking at how they came out and played, how focused they were. Again, you mentioned the ball movement. And when this team's moving the basketball, it's usually because they're focused and they want to beat a team. Do you think LeBron was just kind of saying that? Do you think this team maybe saw this as a chance to make a statement?
Yeah, I think, if you look at their win over the Milwaukee Bucks on Sunday, it seemed like they were coasting a little bit at times, and maybe they flipped a switch, in the third and fourth quarter against Milwaukee. There was no switch that got flipped yesterday. I think you're exactly right. I think there was intensity from the word go, particularly on the defensive end. So, we've talked about, particularly in the third quarter yesterday against Memphis, they scored 36 points. But even in that first quarter, you were seeing really good defense from, Timo Mozgov and even Kevin Love, I thought, played pretty good defensively. So, LeBron can kind of say what he wants. I don't know. It's not necessarily mutually exclusive. They were very focused for last night's game, regardless of whether or not they thought it was going to be, a statement or anything like that.
Now, obviously, a lot of talk about Kevin Love and how he fits, and, of course, that game against Memphis, one of his best as a Cavalier. But generally speaking, Kevin Love and his fit on this team, even though he's not playing like he was in Minnesota, is it a little unfair to maybe expect that, considering now he's got LeBron James and Kyrie Irving that he's playing with? And overall, how do you think he's fit in with this team as the season's gone along?
Maybe I've sort of been a Kevin Love apologist all season long, to be honest with you. I just think, I think a few things have happened this year. One, I don't think any of us, really realized how good Kyrie Irving would be. So, part of it's that we thought Kevin Love would be the number 2 option, but I think Kyrie has been so good that's forced a few of our assumptions about how the season would go to change a little bit. That being said, Kevin Love is averaging, nearly 17 points a game, 10 rebounds, and over 1 3-point basket made per game. Those don't sound like crazy figures, but he's the only one in the NBA doing that. So, from the power forward position to be able to stretch the floor like he does, I know people sort of get tired of these talking points, but when you see in the fourth quarter, when people say that Kevin Love's not playing in the fourth quarter, I think that's overstated too. When you see how much room there is in the lane for Kyrie Irving and LeBron James to create, that is in large part a function of what Kevin Love provides. And I just, even from talking, Brad Stevens, when the Cavs played the Celtics a couple weeks ago, Brad Stevens was talking about just how tough to defend this Cavs team is, in large part because of what Kevin Love can do in all facets. So I think last night was maybe one of his best games of the year. I think you're exactly right. I think there's been a lot of angst that maybe is a little over the top because Cavs lineups with the big three all season have been very, very good.
It's funny, as good as Kyrie's been, it feels like we haven't really been talking about him that much. I want to go to a tweet that you sent out, I believe it was yesterday, and it reads, in 27 games, when Kevin Love, LeBron James, and Kyrie Irving have been healthy for the Cavs since January 15th, their lineups have outscored opponents by 18.8 points per 100 possessions, and they have a 25-2 record. David, if that's not the definition of a big three, I don't know what is.
No, you're exactly right. And, when I found that, to sort of supplement that, we have that big three, like you said. And what's nice is, people have talked about how big of a deal Timo Mozgov is, but, having Timo and also Tristan Thompson, both the big three, when they play with Tristan Thompson this year, are outscoring opponents by 22 points per 100 possessions. The big three, when they play with Timo Mozgov, are outscoring teams by 18 points per 100 possessions. So you have two options there where David Black can play, mix and match with lineups. Last night we're playing the Grizzlies, a big team, so Timo was, incredibly valuable. There are going to be times when, Tristan is the guy that you go with. So the big three have been very good together. The Cavs are really rolling when they've been able to play together. And I think David Griffin has done a good job sort of assembling guys that can fit around those pieces really well, whether it's Tristan, whether it's Timo, whether it's even J.R. Smith. So it's a team that's rolling. They're winning a lot of basketball games right now. So, I'm having fun. I think people that are getting sort of tripped up on the Kevin Love stuff might be missing the trees for the forest.
All right, David Zavac joining us here on Cavs Insider. Tell us where we can find you, David.
We're at cleveland.com, so we got all kinds of Cavs stuff there, and you can follow me at David Zavac, Z-A-V as in Victor, A-C.
All right, great. Thanks for the time.
Hey, thank you.
Now I'm back with Chris Fedor. This is our weekly segment. We're going to do some fill in the blanks this week.
All right, let's do it.
All right, that's what we did in our first show. It's like a throwback.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. Kevin Love, he's been a topic of discussion from day one since he arrived here. Kevin Love will play for blank next season.
The Cleveland Cavaliers.
Okay.
See, I think he's going to opt out of his contract, Dan, but at the same time, he's going to need a basketball situation that is comparable enough to this one here in Cleveland. And there might be one that is kind of on the outside, but I don't think that's going to be enough. Because Kevin Love wanted to leave Minnesota to play in the playoffs, to compete for a championship. The sense that I get in talking to him and talking to people around the NBA, he's all about winning. He's willing to do whatever it takes to win. He's sacrificed more than anybody else on this team. He's gone from 18 shots per game to 12 shots per game. He's gone from playing inside the three-point line to primarily outside the three-point line. He's about the right things. He's about winning. So if he's going to opt out and he's going to search around, he's got to see something that is going to be worth leaving LeBron James and Kyrie Irving, a team that could create a dynasty for the next 5 years in the NBA. And Kevin Love's not going to go to the Los Angeles Lakers because he really wants to play with Jordan Clarkson. Yeah, I'm playing with LeBron James here, but it would be really wild to play with Jeremy Lin. He's not going to do that. So the only team that I was thinking about that could be a situation that could be appealing to Kevin is the Houston Rockets. Yeah. Houston went after Chris Bosh this offseason. They want to stretch four. They're all into analytics. They're all into three-pointers. But even that, are you going to leave LeBron James and Kyrie Irving for Houston? I don't see it. He's going to be a Cav.
All right. The Cavaliers' X factor is blank.
The Cavs' X factor to me is J.R. Smith.
All right.
If J.R. Smith is making three-pointers the way that he's made three-pointers here in March and he's shooting 41% in the month of March, if he's shooting like that, it's going to be very difficult for any team to beat the Cavs 4 times in a 7-game series. You have an idea of what you're going to get from LeBron. You have an idea of what you're going to get from Kyrie. You would like to have an idea of what you're going to get from Kevin, and I think you do in terms of impact, maybe not in terms of stats, points, and rebounds, but in terms of impact, you do. JR to me is a wild card. And when he's making threes, all of a sudden the Cavs offense is so much more dangerous. That means teams might guard Kevin one-on-one. Teams might guard Kyrie and LeBron one-on-one because they don't want to leave JR. And if they do leave JR, that means the Cavs can make a barrage of threes like what happened over the weekend against the Milwaukee Bucks.
J.R. Smith is like the perfect X-factor player, too. Because, he really is. Like you said, he's a wild card.
Yeah.
You just never really know. There was a stretch where he was passing up open shots,
Right.
which is something J.R. Smith never does.
Right.
You never know what you're going to get out of him. I
That's
like
right.
that one.
The thing about JR, though, that I love since he came over to Cleveland, he's defending, Dan.
Yeah.
He's fighting through screens, he's blocking shots, he's getting his hands in the passing lanes. He's trying to take on that challenge that Iman Shumpert was supposed to have when he came over from the Knicks. So when you have JR making threes and defending, I mean, you've got a guy who's got all-star ability.
Let's take the Pacers out of the equation for this next one, because that
Okay.
seems to be the popular answer. And I've asked you some variation of this over the weeks, but the team, aside from the Pacers, that the Cavaliers would least want to face in the first round.
Miami Heat.
Yeah.
That's a no-brainer to me because you talk about those other teams that could be in there. They'd love to face Milwaukee. You can say what you want to about Milwaukee, defensive-minded team. They're 5-13 since making a bizarre trade where they swapped their best point guard for Michael Carter-Williams, who's a turnover machine. Boston, look, Boston at the beginning of the year had a starting lineup that was supposed to be Rajon Rondo, Jared Sullinger, Jeff Green, and then another guy, all right? Well, 4 of those guys are either hurt or no longer in Boston. There's been a lot of change for the Celtics. And then Charlotte, whatever. Charlotte's been up and down. I expected better from them. They haven't lived up to that. So to me, it's Miami. Battle-tested, championship DNA, top 5 defense in the NBA. I think Eric Spoelstra is a very, very good coach. Dwayne Wade in the month of March has been as good as anybody in the NBA. And the addition of Goran Dragic, that was the weakness for the Miami Heat. They didn't have a point guard. It was Norris Cole for a little while. It was Mario Chalmers. They just didn't have that guy to run the show. Goran Dragic is getting more comfortable in Miami, and I think he's one of the most underrated point guards in the league. Toss in the emotions, LeBron James having to play against his former team in the first round of the playoffs with a new group of guys that have never been in the playoffs before. I think all those kinds of things could add up to a tough 6-7 game series in the first round.
You got a pull-up on that right now on the site. Folks can vote for...
right now, Miami's winning too, by the way.
All right, look at that. A lot of talk about the MVP.
Yep.
We kind of know the MVP award doesn't always go to the best player in the league. There's that word valuable in there. It gets a little tricky. So this is a different... we're not talking MVP here. Blank is the best player in the NBA right now.
That's LeBron.
LeBron?
Still. Yeah. And you're right. We're not talking about the MVP because I think best player in the NBA and guy who's having the best season, 2 completely different conversations. But there's just nobody that does what LeBron James does for his team on a nightly basis as well as LeBron does it. He's got a post game now. He's knocking down outside shots. He puts so much pressure on the defense. He can still be a top 5 defender in the league when he wants to be a top 5 defender in the league. He's a stat sheet stuffer, and if I had to pick any one guy to go into any situation, a playoff series, Game 7 on the road, I'm taking LeBron first and foremost. He's smart, he's been through it all before, and there's just nobody that can do the things that he does.
And this season was so interesting because we kind of got to see like banged up below the rim LeBron for the first couple months of the season and how that impacted the Cavaliers. Took those 2 weeks off. Then we got to see like old LeBron, the LeBron we all expected when he signed here in July. And you can see the difference. You can see the type of impact that he alone has on the game of basketball.
And I also want to add, as much as LeBron probably is more healthy right now than he was in early January, late December, LeBron's attitude is way better too.
Yeah.
LeBron is somebody who wants to compete for championships. It's why he came back here to Cleveland. And early in the season, he had a look of, these guys that I'm surrounded with, not good enough. And that affected his play, I think. There were times that he didn't get back on defense. There were times that he didn't close out to shooters. There were times when it looked like he was pouting. You're not seeing that anymore. So I think it's a combination of LeBron changing his attitude in the second half of the season and also getting more healthy.
All right, fill in the blanks in the books. You had a chance to catch up with Chris Haynes a little bit earlier.
Click up.
Let's go ahead and see what he had to say.
Joining us right now, Cavs beat reporter for cleveland.com, Chris Haynes. What's going on, Chris?
I'm doing good, Fito. Just got to New York, so, about to settle in here. But, so far, Cavs, man, playing ridiculously good. They're clicking on all cylinders, and it was good to also see Kevin Love play up the form last night. So I guess all things is well in Cavs land.
That's right. Tomorrow night, they play against the Brooklyn Nets. Last night, though, as we talk about that game, Chris, a demolition against the Memphis Grizzlies, handing the Grizz their worst home loss of the season. Cavs now 47-26. If you go back to that game against Memphis, what was the thing that really stood out to you?
It was impressive to see how they manhandled the Grizzlies front line.
Mm-hmm.
The Grizzlies front line is one of the most vicious, toughest. They're similar to the Indiana Pacers. And to also see Kevin Love go out there and have his way. And he didn't do it in a finesse way, in a way that we've been seeing him doing all year, which is standing out on the perimeter, just being a spot-up, stretch-forward type of shooter. He mixed it up, and it was more mixing up in the paint. And it was good to see him getting in the post, finishing with the baby hook, finding the open seams, getting robbed, dunking, showing that explosion. We haven't seen that from him for the most part this year. So the fact that the Cavs are still trying to make a concerted effort to find him, knowing that when he's on, this team just goes to a different level, just shows that they still have some growth to go. And to do that at that place in Memphis, man, it was just ridiculous and incredible to watch.
For Kevin in particular, last night's game, getting into the post, doing more work inside the three-point line. Chris, is that a sign of things to come, do you think?
Well, I think everybody hopes so, because you would think the game plan would be for Kevin Love to stay out on the perimeter against a Memphis team who has Zach Randolph and Mark Gasol.
Mm-hmm.
You want to try to get those guys outside the paint so they so they can stay out, so they can stay outside. And you have to remember their defensive presence. They have Tony Allen and Mike Conley on the perimeter, but their defensive presence in the interior is what makes them so good. And so they went completely off the radar as far as the game plan goes, because you would, like I said, you would think Love would stay out on the perimeter on that team, but they let Love play on the inside. They let him bang against Jack Zebo, and he had some success, man. And I think what it did was it gave Kevin Love confidence, and knowing that he can still go out there and get it done. And I know athletes, they're not going to admit that. They're not going to admit that they've lost confidence through the course of the season. But then when you're playing the way Kevin's been playing all year, man, you have to lose some form of confidence. So him going out there doing that against a very tough opponent in the Grizzlies in their front line, I think it bodes well for the Cavs and Love moving forward.
Cavs finish off this road trip Friday night in Brooklyn, then it's back home on Sunday against the Philadelphia 76ers. Should be an easy one there, at least for the Cavs. When you look at the rest of this regular season, Chris, what is it that the Cavs have left to accomplish?
Not much.
Okay.
They're not playing. They're down with facing Western Conference opponents. I think right now it's just about Kevin Love. Let's see how he finishes off strong, because if Kevin Love can finish off the these nine remaining games, playing just all-around excellent basketball, mixing up on the inside out, I think that's when this team is going to be, even scarier going and heading into the playoffs, because he brings a different dynamic. Because it's one thing to be a perimeter-oriented team, and the Cavs have been that. But you have to remember, they have two of the most dominant perimeter-oriented players in the league, so they can get away with that. But when you got that inside-outside game going there, it just takes you to tremendous heights. So if Kevin Love can finish this season off strong, believe it or not, fans will forget about what happened throughout the course of the season, because it's all about what you've done to be late. And I think he's really the key to taking this team to the next level.
ESPN.com has their rankings. What they do is they have a big old panel, and they rank the top coaches in the NBA, the top executives in the NBA. David Blatt came in 19 out of 30. Earlier today on a radio station, Chris, I was asked a question, and I was kind of stumped, to be honest with you. I was searching for an answer. So I'm going to ask you the same question that I was asked, see if you can come up with an answer.
Okay.
What is David Blatt's biggest strength? That's what I did too. That's the same thing I did. I said he has LeBron James.
That's what you said? Okay, let me try to go a different route. His biggest part, he's extremely confident.
Okay.
He's extremely confident. Well, at least he puts on that facade that he's extremely confident. I'll say that. You know what, Peter? That's about it. That's all I got.
I was kind of surprised, though, that he was ranked number 19 out of 30 from ESPN.com. And he was below, Jeff Hornacek of the Suns. They're not in the playoffs. Quinn Snyder of the Utah Jazz, not in the playoffs. Frank Vogel of Indiana, he's done a terrific job. He's dealt with a lot of injuries there, but also right now not in the playoff picture.
So you think that Blatt should be above those guys?
Considering that the Cavs are 47-26, I could make the argument, yeah.
Okay, now, but you can also make the argument, too, that it's the personnel that's on the court. You can make the argument, too, that LeBron James is the closest we've seen in years to being a player coach. So, with all that being said, I can understand why they got Blatt at number 19. That's correct?
Yep.
Okay, I can understand that. But at the same time, we have to give credit to credit's due, and I've done it myself. And Blatt, you can't deny the fact that he's the head coach of this team. And he runs practices, he runs schemes, and sometimes the players run what he says, sometimes they don't. But he's the man in charge, and whenever the man is in charge, if there's something going good, you have to give him credit, just like the president. When the economy is running well, when jobs are being created, you have to give the president credit. You have to give a person at the helm their just due, man. And I think slowly but surely people are starting to do that. But like I said, I can also see why people don't have Blatt rated as high, as you probably think he should.
The Cavs have less than 10 games left in the regular season, Chris. Where do you see the relationship between David Blatt and LeBron James right now?
Relationship. I think it's still forming.
Okay.
It's still going to take some playoff series before we really start to see how tight they really are. Because LeBron James, I'm gonna say it. LeBron James, he goes and runs a lot of his own stuff. Blatt may call something, Bron goes out and runs something else. I mean, that's just because Bron has that clout, he has the experience, and he can do that. But in the playoffs, it's going to be very key to see if LeBron James, and not just LeBron, everybody else from that standpoint, really listen to Blatt. Really allow him to coach and lead and dictate what goes on from play to play. I know that's not going to happen every single play, but in the playoffs, it's really about coaching. That's when the coaching is at its best. That's when you can see what these guys are truly made of. Separate the boys from the men. So we're going to see a lot in the playoffs. In the regular season, these players they've gotten away with improvising, going out roaming, doing their own thing. But in the playoffs, it's going to fall all on the shoulders of David Blatt. So that's where we'll really see how much control he has in this team.
Should Cleveland fans be concerned that you're not best friends with Joe Vardon or some of the other beat reporters?
I think as long as we're producing, and I think as long as the Cavs are producing on the court, man, it really doesn't matter. I mean, who ever thought that LeBron James and Kevin Love were best friends? They're two opposite, type of people. You know what I mean? Like, Kevin Love, every single game, he leaves the arena by himself. He's the last guy to leave every single time. And so, come on now. I mean, I didn't see, me personally, I didn't see what the big deal is about the whole thing. I thought it was quite refreshing, even though majority of people would disagree with me, that I thought it was quite refreshing that he's going to give you his honest opinion on who he thinks should be the MVP. So, I didn't see no harm in it, man. Everybody wants players to be candid and be open, but when they do, then you bash them for it. But it is what it is. I didn't, like I said, I didn't think there's really nothing to it. And, you can't be friends with everybody.
Click up. Strive for deadline.
How'd you like that, Fedor? Hey, look, that is just the thing.
Yeah.
It was me in it, Fedor, Jason Lloyd, Ethan, and David Minner.
Yeah.
Where were you at?
I know. I was the guy taking the picture. How about that?
You was? No, you weren't.
That's what we're going to tell people, Chris.
Okay, that's fine, but I'm going to tell people the real. I'm like Kevin Love. I'm going to be open and candid. Let you know that you're the guy that we have a problem with.
You have me doing the Kevin Love treatment? Is that what you're telling me?
Hey, you can either fit in or fit out. It's your choice.
Sounds good. I'll decide that one in the next coming days and then let you know how I come out on that one. All right, Chris?
You take care, my guy.
All right, buddy. There he is, Chris Haynes, our Cavs beat reporter, joining us on Cavs Insider here on cleveland.com.
All right, Cavs Insider is in the books. Cavs still kicked out of their own building at the regional finals happening at Quicken Loans Arena. So they've got Brooklyn Friday. Then they get to come home on Sunday, and welcoming them is the Philadelphia 76ers. There's not a better homecoming present in the NBA than the Philadelphia 76ers.
That's absolutely right. As hard as they play and as much as they try, they just don't have a lot of players that belong in the NBA right now. I'm looking around at that roster and I'm saying, who? Who?
Although I'll tell you what, Nerlens Noel would look very good in a Cavaliers uniform.
Yeah. Plus he'd give Iman Shumpert a run for his money with the flat top.
That's true. Could have team flat top between him and Shumpert. All right, he's Chris Fedor. I'm Dan Lobby. As I said, David Zavak joined us earlier. Our thanks to him. You can hit him up at fearthesword.com or at David Zavak, and of course our own Chris Haynes. You got to check out that Twitter pic of him and the traveling Cavaliers beat reporters. It is, it's something.
That's
all I
the
can say
good way to
about
put it, yes.
All right, we'll be back with you next week for another edition of Cavs Insider. Thanks for watching.